Christine, in her early 30s, seemed to have a life that many would envy. She was a successful businesswoman, the owner of a growing tech startup that was beginning to make waves in the market. She had a husband, Edward, who was also successful, though in a completely different field. Both of them, with their established careers, lived comfortably. However, despite their achievements, Christine felt empty, suffocated by the monotonous routine of their lives. The spark that once existed between her and Edward had long since faded. She didn't know exactly when the love they had once shared began to dissipate, but lately, their relationship had become nothing more than a series of formalities and uncomfortable silences. Edward was the type of husband who felt more like a brother than a romantic partner. There was no longer any passion or genuine interest in each other. Their conversations were monotonous, revolving around practical and trivial matters. He was immersed in his work while Christine was absorbed in the business world, leaving little room for what truly mattered: love, attraction, and intimacy. The reality of her marriage was harsh, but Christine felt incapable of ending it. She didn't know when or how the love between her and Edward disappeared, but she realized they were living more like roommates than a married couple. What had once been love had become a string of automatic gestures and superficial conversations. There was no longer the warmth of a kiss at the end of the day, no more spontaneous laughter, no late-night talks. All that remained was a relationship without emotion, and Christine found herself increasingly sinking into loneliness. It was then that Christine decided to enroll in a postgraduate business management course. She needed something to break the monotony of her life, something that would make her feel alive again, something that would reconnect her with her own energy and a bigger purpose. The idea of learning more about her field, expanding her horizons, and gaining more knowledge seemed like the perfect escape. Not to mention, the course was also a great networking opportunity that could benefit her business. She thought it might be just what she needed to regain control over her life. The first day of class was a surprise to Christine. She wasn't sure what to expect, but what she found changed her life in ways she hadn't anticipated. Alexander, one of the students in the course, was sitting in the front row, with a confident smile and a calm presence. He seemed completely at ease, while Christine, still hesitant, searched for her seat. They exchanged glances once or twice during the class, but it was only during the next break that their paths began to intertwine. Alexander approached her with a friendly smile, asking, "Hi, you're Christine, right?" From there, the conversation flowed naturally. He was charming in a quiet way, not trying too hard to impress, but he had something Christine had lost: the ability to connect with people genuinely. As the weeks went by, their contact deepened. At first, it was all academic, discussions about the course material, group projects, and presentations. But soon, Christine started to notice that there was something different about her interactions with Alexander. He didn't treat her like a successful businesswoman or just a classmate. He treated her as a person, as a woman. He paid attention to her gestures, her shy smiles, and seemed genuinely interested in what she had to say. She had never felt this way with Edward, who had long since stopped seeing her as anything more than his wife. But Alexander, on the other hand, saw her as a woman with desires, insecurities, and untapped dreams. Their encounters, which began in the classroom, soon extended outside of it. They started having coffee together after class, chatting about a variety of subjects. Alexander always found a way to make her laugh, to disarm her, making her forget about the daily grind. Christine, in turn, felt comfortable in his presence. He listened to her without judgment, and she began to realize that she was opening up in a way she hadn't in years. With every encounter, she felt the distance between her and Edward grow, to the point where she found herself seeking out Alexander more than her own husband. But what Christine didn't know was that Alexander had started to feel something for her too. It wasn't just physical attraction, it was something deeper, something emotional. One afternoon, during a class break, Alexander invited Christine to lunch. They went to a nearby restaurant, where the mood was quieter, and the conversation more intimate. After hours of talking about their lives, Alexander touched on a delicate subject. "I can tell that you're not completely happy, Christine. Something in your life seems to be missing. I might be wrong, but you deserve more than this." His words struck Christine like a jolt. She knew he was talking about her marriage, about the frustration she felt with Edward, but something inside her shifted. She realized that she had been unhappy for a long time, but had never said it out loud. When he looked into her eyes, Christine felt something she hadn't in years: desire. It wasn't just physical, it was a need to be seen, to be recognized, to be desired. The line between friendship and something more began to blur in a way that felt completely natural. In subsequent meetings, their connection deepened. They started touching each other lightly, small gestures that at first seemed innocent but quickly became charged with deeper meaning. A touch on the arm, a lingering glance, a shared laugh. Christine didn't know exactly what was happening, but she couldn't deny that she was becoming more and more drawn to Alexander. She began to see in him everything she felt she had lost in her marriage: passion, energy, vibrancy. One evening, after a particularly intense class, Alexander invited Christine to a quiet bar, a small tavern far from the city's hustle and bustle. The conversation started as usual, but as the time passed, something shifted. The tension between them became almost palpable. When their gazes met, the closeness between them seemed electric. In a spontaneous move, Alexander leaned in, gently touching Christine's face before kissing her. She was taken aback by the intensity of the kiss, hesitating for a moment, but then giving in. It was as if an electric current ran through her, and in that moment, Christine thought of nothing else but Alexander. She didn't think of Edward, or the consequences. All she wanted was to feel alive, desired. From that night on, their relationship intensified exponentially. Every meeting, every conversation, every touch became like a drug to Christine. She knew she was cheating on her husband, but she couldn't stop. When she was with Alexander, she felt like someone again, someone important, someone with desire. Alexander began to be a constant presence in her life, and her marriage to Edward seemed more and more distant, more irrelevant. Christine found herself in a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, she knew what she was doing was wrong. She was breaking a trust, something she had promised Edward. But on the other hand, Alexander made her feel alive in a way she had never felt before. When they were together, it felt like the world was at her feet, like she was someone who mattered. Their relationship continued in secret for weeks, until Christine started to feel the weight of the lie. But at the same time, she couldn't imagine her life without him. She was at a crossroads, between the obligation to maintain her current life and the temptation to throw herself into the forbidden passion Alexander offered her. She knew that sooner or later, she would have to make a choice. But at that moment, deep down, Christine knew that her life would never be the same again. Every meeting with Alexander pulled her further away from Edward, and the more she tried to maintain her double life, the more she lost herself in a world of lies.